real quick. So that I asked Aaron to come in and kind of go through that because I think it's better to hear it from someone who does have the clinical background and has a lot more letters after his name than I do. And so there's safety in that, and I think we talked a lot about that in this class, is allowing oversight, allowing transparency, allowing all these different organizations to be involved, so that we have a fresh start here in Wapaka. We don't repeat history, and I think the way that we do that is by being partners with other agencies and other professionals and other, especially treatment providers, so that we can open up to them and they can help. Like we were talking about, in like having a closed DAA meeting or something for us, but making sure that someone still comes into that every once in a while, because we can get sick really fast, and we can, and we don't, because we're in recovery, and it is what it is, and we know the risks and we know the boundaries now, and so I asked Amanda to come, and I was very glad that she was. She's a probation supervisor in our area, and I asked her to come and just kind of talk a little bit about what their rules are for supervision, people that are on supervision, providing peer support or sponsorship, that sort of thing, just to give us clarity so that we're sure that we're being good partners and we're not crossing those boundaries. So I guess what I'll say is, I'll let her talk and we can do a Q&A, and just respectfully get through figuring this all out together, and then we can create a plan to, whatever it is that whatever criteria we need to fit, so that we're good partners for them, we want to do it. So I just thank you for coming, and I give you the floor.
Absolutely, thank you.
So my name is Amanda Ayala. I see a lot of familiar faces in here. I've been with the Department of Corrections for 15 years. I've been in probation and parole for 13 years. So I've worked in the prison, I've worked on the juvenile side, and now I'm in community corrections. So I have a long-standing history, and a lot of that time has been spent here in Wapaka. So I know the community, I understand the resources, and I'm kind of well-versed in that. So this topic came up a couple years ago when peer support kind of first circled around us, and it became a thing. It has been the name has been changed over and over. I think it started off as recovery coach, and it's changed over the years, and what it looks like has changed as well. So very quickly, when recovery coach sort of came into play, we realized, oh boy, we might have some problems. So what was happening was clients that were on supervision were very much interested in this position. It seemed like a really good next step for them. They were in recovery, they were doing well, they wanted to help other people. That made sense. And so early on, let's do this. So we had clients on supervision helping other clients on supervision. So let me ask you, where do you think that could maybe go wrong? Who's got some ideas?
Everywhere.
Okay, everywhere.
Yeah.
Without mentioning any names.
Relapses and could cause relapse.
Absolutely. We had people wanting to coach too soon, and they weren't ready themselves, but they felt like they were ready. Because what are we? We are helpers. I'm a helper, you're a helper. We want to help. I mean, we do. And sometimes it's at the cost of our own sobriety. So yes, we realized, oh shit, this is not working out well. So we very quickly had to change some of the rules. Because then we started looking into policy and procedure. And we're like, well, wait a minute. Being on probation and parole, you have an obligation to be honest with your agent or with any DOC employee that asks you a question. That's part of being under our authority, is if we ask you a question, we expect an honest answer. So what happens when you're coaching someone on probation? They have a violation, maybe a new criminal act, and I ask you about it. Well, there goes your confidentiality, right, with the person you're coaching, but you're on probation and you're obligated to be honest with me as your agent. It created a mess. It created a really big mess. The biggest one was, yes, coaches wanting to coach too soon. And then what we would see is we'd see 2 DOC clients fall really hard. And that would just be so unfortunate. We saw clients fall back into criminal patterns when they were coaching. You know, we had coaches that maybe had trafficking backgrounds that were really far back in their history, but then when they had the authority to coach someone, those trafficking backgrounds sort of came back. And that's a very dangerous. The last thing any of you here would want to do at this juncture would be putting any of your clients in danger, right? But we see how that can slowly slip away. And then all of a sudden now 2 of you are in a bad place. So we, along with central office, with legal counsel, we've gone over and over and over this, and we have taken a very strong stance. If you are on supervision, that you are not permitted to coach someone else on supervision, simply because it's not fair to you and it's not fair to them, is really the bottom line. So while you're on supervision, until you discharge, you're still a work in progress, right? So for the crime that you committed, you were given a certain amount of time. The judge felt it would take for you to be good, to be on the right track, right? So until we get you to that discharge date, in our mind, you're not quite there yet. Once you're off supervision, then it's up to you. Also, then you don't have to worry about confidentiality, because this has happened many times where we start, the rumor mill starts, you know, and we're like, hey, I know you coach John Doe. We heard that you know about some crimes. What are you going to do? I mean, these are all things he told you in confidence as a coach, and now you're left, well, either I lie to my probation and parole agent, or I break confidentiality. It just created a really big nightmare, and you don't want to get sued. You don't want to get sued. If you release some sort of protected health information you're not supposed to, because you're obligated to me, I don't want you getting sued. So there's a lot of different areas that this touch. We've had doctors on probation, we have had clinical supervisors on probation, we have had clinicians on probation, and the same rule applies to them. So we have had AODA clinicians have their own clinics. They open their own clinics. They are certified. They have all the numbers and letters behind their name. They cannot see DOC clients. Okay? That went all the way through the court system, and we won. So I just want to let you, it's not something, a rule I'm just making up. Basically, the bottom line is I don't want to see what happened a couple of years ago happen again. And so my job is to make sure you're in a really good place yourself. My obligation is to my DOC clients. And that's really where I'm at. And if I think that that is a bad idea, you just have to go, because we've seen it happen before. And every year, I get a lot of arguments, I get a lot of administrative reviews, I get a lot of pushback on it, and it's because we've been there and we've done it. What do you guys have for questions? Because it's such a broad topic. Yes?
So I just have a question.
Sure.
Somebody who's in this situation,
Yep.
I just like to understand what's in here. I started going to class, and actually started going to training to do these
Yes.
things right after my release from prison. Why wasn't this described to me before I got invested?
That, I mean, I really don't have an answer for that. I mean, if you would have brought it, maybe, I don't know what they do in the institution, if that was something you brought up with a social worker.
It's something that I worked on with my agent.
Sure. Who is your agent?
Genesis Christians.
Okay, that's been a rule, and Janessa, I'm not gonna discuss that. You and I have been down this road. Janessa is very aware of this rule. My office is very aware of this policy, simply because what has happened in the past. We're very aware. So, going to class, absolutely. We would definitely encourage you to do that. Getting a certification, absolutely. We would definitely encourage you to do that. However, your clientele just cannot be on probation. Does not mean there is hundreds of other people in this little community that need your help. there's more than enough clientele probably to fill your whole week. It's probation and parole clients. So we have people going to school for multiple things right now. You know, they're going to school to potentially become a nurse, or to become, you know, an elementary school teacher, or, you know, there's things that you might not be approved to do at this very moment, but that doesn't mean that it's not approved once you're off supervision, or it doesn't mean that there's a certain clientele that you will be able to service outside of DOC clientele. So yeah, I would imagine it probably was something she encouraged, but there's a small pocket of clients that wouldn't be available to until after being on supervision. But I know, we're all from this community, I know we know there's more than enough not on supervision that can use our couple. Yes.
What about providing peer support specialists while you're on probation to somebody with an active charge?
Yeah, so they haven't been committed to the Department of Corrections yet?
They have not
Yeah.
committed the cases open
Yep.
for all kinds of purposes.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those judgments, because, I mean, as with County County, we know a case can be open for a very long time, and they could use your help. You know what I'm saying?
But
And
does your job end then if they get put on?
yes, then you're coaching, so that would be something I would be upfront with them, is like, you know what? And especially, you know, if you know the system, you can be very helpful for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've navigated the court systems before, and you've navigated attorneys, you probably have some really good, useful information for them. But I would be upfront and say, I just wanna let you know, once you're placed on probation, my coaching role to you would have to change. And, you know, but I think, yeah. Right, but I think you could be valuable to them prior to them being on supervision. Yeah.
So I just want to get this clear, because I'm on probation, and I talked to my PO about this already.
Yeah.
So once we get stuff established with CCS, it's called, I'm able to help individuals in CCS as long as we're not on probation.
What's this, yeah?
Comprehensive community service, it's through the county.
Yes,
Okay.
those do not apply to us.
Okay.
And I don't know what county rules are, but those don't apply to us, right? Yeah.
That would be set by the treatment provider that we're using, so they would set boundaries and guidelines for us.
So is that determined if you're on probation, whether you can still help people?
You know that, so their rules state only people that are on supervision are the ones you can't work with, and so going through the process.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, so it'd be like, we have to do an intake on them, and one of the questions is, are you on supervision? And if they lie to us, it's not our fault, but if we find out and then do something about it, that's our fault. So
Right.
that's kind of what we're drawing the line is, we ask, and we probably ask twice just to be sure, so that, because what I don't want, so I'm not on supervision, I don't want to put anybody in this room in a place where now they're getting the repercussions of something that
Right.
they have no intention to get. And so, I think as long as we lead with that, and we lead with the integrity of, we're asking the question a couple of times, you know, wanna be sure, then you're in the clear morally and ethically and legally. So it's hard because of, like, when a lot of, and I remember when I first got into recovery too, I wanted to take on the role that I was on supervision, and there were some classes that I wanted to take that just wouldn't work, and it's difficult, it's hard to navigate, but I think that if this group takes on the intentionality of best foot forward and integrity and above board on everything, like James and I talked about this, like, if we lead with that, and a couple years down the road, we can show that this is solid, this is, you know, this is who we are, you know, we can maybe rejoin the conversation again and talk about it. And to be clear, this isn't a rule you made, this is a statewide thing, and so like, we don't wanna give our local probation department grief over a state rule that they have like literally no control over.
Right.
And I think honestly, it does come down to, we have to show that that we have integrity, that we have competence first before, and if we can do that, that's how we move the needle. Like if we show we're about making a healthier Wapaka, making a healthier community, I know probation has no problem getting behind that.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're limited a little bit on who we can serve in the immediate, but man, what I do know is, 2008 was a long time ago for me, but it seems like yesterday. So like the years will go by, and you get off supervision, and if you're engaged in like helping people, and we're all staying healthy, like that, like then when that happens, it's just that much more. It gives you that much more credibility too with clients like that.
Right.
I've been on supervision. I get the rules, and it's hard, and it's sometimes like we can internalize it, and it's unfair, right? Because this is like. In my role now, I guess kind of blends some lines between ministry and doing medicine, so it's like this is my calling, and I feel like God called me to do this, and so it's not good, and you hit these borders, and you can take it personally, but I know, from the conversations I've had in the treatment court team, it's not a personal thing, and yeah, so somebody a few years ago really messed it up for us. What we need to do is make it right, and then we have something to stand on and say, listen, this is the way we're doing it, this is the way the state recommends it, then how do we build partnerships down the road with all the people in probation so that we're trustworthy, they know we're trustworthy, and we can move that needle. So that's my thoughts on it.
I mean, we're in a unique position being on paper, having that limited, because we actually have a relationship with the Department of Drugs. We're dealing with probation and parole when we get off. So, I mean, that could be strong. And like we talked about earlier, and bringing the Recovery Coalition on as accountability, I made a note here, I said, oversight from them provides accountability to the organization, which is subject to oversight. Organization provides culture drives ethics and operations drives tactics, right on down the line.
Exactly.
The rules are the rules, we don't have a fucking choice, it is what it is. And like we talked about today before we started, I'm on probation because I fucked up, period. So if that is the hoop that I have to jump through, it's about looking at it in a positive light, right? You can look at your agent as somebody that's a resource to help you, like somebody's gonna look at us as peer support people, as an asset, or as a resource broker. Probation parole is pretty much the same way. If you dread going in to see your agent every time you go in to see him, it's probably a you problem, not a me problem. And same thing for what we're doing here. So the more you understand, I think the more we understand that, the better off we'll be. If we look at it that way, it's a goal. My goal when I get off is to do this, and I can help a larger breadth of people. So, I understand where you're coming from there, and even if I didn't, the rule's the rule, I can't change it.
Well, what usually drives policy and procedure, unfortunately? Why is a policy or procedure put in place?
Well, I used to call it a business, yeah, it's the how not to get fucked file, right?
Because somebody did something where it's like, whoa, we need to cover our bases here, and that's what happened a couple of years ago, and where it was like, oh, okay, we've got a problem here. My dad went through this very class and was a recovery coach, and he was a long-time alcoholic, and because his daughter was in this role, he did not really service DOC clients, and he was very booked with non-DOC clients. So I've been out there, I know this role very well. My dad did a really good job. So yeah, I think, just respecting, and I think you hit it right on the head. There's two ways of looking at your agent, and I feel like when people are truly ready for recovery and ready for that healthy lifestyle, you see us in a whole different light. You see us in a different light. When you're not ready,
You're the arch
you
nemesis.
hate us.
I've been there.
You hate me, you hate them, you hate the parking lot, you hate the building, you hate everything about it. I know. But I will say, the individuals that are sitting in your seats, that have come years before you, would say the same thing. When you're ready to live that healthy lifestyle and really to move in that direction, yes, you see us on the same level as you. Like, we're here to help. And that's what you're gonna do, is you're gonna help. And we wanna be that resource for you. We wanna be the people that when you're done with supervision, that you come back to, and we partner and we work together. We have many people that I am now, I went to their wedding this summer. Because he's so in recovery, and he's 7 years out, but 7 years ago he sat in my office and he had 2 OWIs in one night. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And yeah. Yes, it was very, very bad. And he became a recovery coach. He's off now, and he comes back all the time and helps us. He speaks for us. He partnerships with us, and that is like an ultimate goal. Like that's super cool because we do want. I mean, regardless of your history, we'll partner with you. Absolutely. Like that's a really cool thing because I think that brings it all together for those clients that are sitting there struggling to see like, wow, he did it. And here's DOC, and okay, maybe they might know something. That's kind of cool. What other questions?
What about like, so taking the professional position out of it, what about being on, like sponsorship, working the 12-step program, cause we talked a little bit about the delineation between the more the clinical side, the professional side, and the volunteer side over there. Is there a stance from probation and parole about me sponsoring somebody that's on supervision?
I think I don't think there's as clear of a stance, and sponsoring can be a little bit, you're not, because sponsorship is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, a non-paid,
Right,
that would be a
right.
non-paid position. I don't think we take as hard of a stance on that. I think that would be something, we wanna discuss, like, you don't have to give details to your agent, but like, hey, I think I'm at the point, I would like to sponsor someone, I've been asked, what are your thoughts? I think it needs to kind of be an open dialogue. I mean, there's confidentiality, and you don't need to, but I think just like, what are your thoughts? Do you think I'm ready?
I went to my PO about the person who's now my sponsor, she's also on probation, she was also in drug court,
Yep.
It's just a matter of how you set your boundaries with that
Yes.
person,
Yeah.
My PO told me right out
She-
that I can't sponsor people that are on probation, which I don't have any sponsees that are
Sure.
on probation, but it was a flat no.
I think there's room
Yeah.
for discussion. I do. Yep. I think there's room for discussion. Talk to her.
Yeah, right.
I'm not
It's
gonna
not like
give
I
you-
had
Yes.
asked anybody specific, I just simply said, hey, my sponsee gave me the go ahead. I
And I
don't have
can't
anybody
really-
at this point, and she said, absolutely not, nobody that's on probation.
And that's something that I think I would be, as a supervisor, I would be open to dialogue. So,
Okay.
but you also
Knowing
have to
that
remember.
it's the same PO,
But
and
you also
I'm
have
in
to
a
remember-
further situation
Okay,
than she is.
but you
it's
have
just
to remember-
irritating,
Every person is different. And so my history with you is gonna be different than with you. So that agent might have a valid reason for allowing her to proceed and not you. Cause remember, in probation, it's not a blanket. There's not no. And that is very hard. We get that a lot. Like, why do you put me in jail for using, but you didn't put him in jail for using? I think that gets asked every day,
Just
right?
like everyone's recovery is different.
Right, everyone's recovery is different, yeah.
And even from, just to going back to what Aaron was talking about before, as a peer support specialist, having the ability to be autonomous and use your own experience, strength and hope, or all of that.
Yeah.
With our clients, it's the same thing there, right? You're taking what you know or what the individual knows, they've got some autonomy to be able to do that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I get that, I think that's great.
Yes, and I mean, like I said, there's no cookie cutter answer for any of this. I mean, you might be able to, have 10 positive UAs and you might be able to have 2. There's not going to be a cookie cutter response in the DOC, and I think that's why our job is so hard, is because none of you are going to be supervised the same, nor should you. I think we wouldn't be doing our job if I supervised you exactly like I supervised you. You have different histories, you're at different places, you have different static and dynamic needs. I mean, we wouldn't be doing a good job.
Not to mention, you guys are individuals yourselves.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So, those are things, like I said, there's a couple hard and fast no's, and then there's a couple negotiables, and that's always gonna be that way. So having that conversation, like, can I talk to you about this? This is what, setting up a plan, like, this is the plan. I've come up with, the cons and the pros, like, of this plan, of being a sponsor. This is why I think it's a good idea. These are the things that could go wrong. If they do, this is my plan. Having something, set up where, yeah, I think for the most part, we've been burned enough where the agent's initial answer is probably gonna be like, yeah, no, that's not too bad. Because they've been burned very, very bad in this situation in the last 10 years, and we took a lot of heat. So, And it created a big mess, and there was a lot of victims created because of it. And to me, I don't know if I'll ever really let that go, because if I would have known what I know now, there could have been a couple less victims, and that really bugs me. So that's kind of, you know, why, what drives us to be who we are, you know. What else? You have me.
Can we talk about the, is it recovery, the RCI thing? Is that?
Oh, recovery capital,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's something about, I'm just thinking future relationships and things like that, if you're familiar with that little app thing that's got going on, the algorithm that tracks.
The Nicole's know,
Mhm.
that we're working on implementing, I don't know if she
Yeah.
does yet or
Probably
not.
not. Yeah, they know a lot more than I do.
Right, it's just a dynamic for measuring, sobriety and recovery, I guess.
Yeah, so we're in the conversation of purchasing this for the use by the county for, DOC, for Aaron, for peer support, for Dr. Lyons, so everybody has access to the signs an MOU on the deal. So then probation can see, okay, you know, they're answering these questions and their resiliency index is a lot lower. We need to have an intervention on this
For sure.
social capital, whatever. We know that, we can talk to probation control about it, we can talk to whoever is their healthcare provider about it, and try and stop, stop measuring recovery by sober, not sober, and then
Right.
two, like being able to intervene in a specific area of capital that they're lacking before there's a not sober answer, right? And that's the biggest, I think, benefit of that tool, but, you know, it is $50,000 a year for a county our size, and so we have to raise the funds for that, but I think we've done it, but.
And then, I mean, that was just something that came to mind when Justine was talking about her agent, take some of that subjectivity out of it.
Yeah.
And say, we've got a measure now, a benchmark now to be able to say, you know what, you probably
Yeah.
are far enough along to be able to run somebody through 12.
Sure.
You know?
And that's just like he said, is that, the track record went straight to hell in the first couple, so now we're trying to recover. You know, had recovery coaches come out and it was just a blazing success, we might not be where we are today with our stance, but it wasn't. And like I said, victims were created, and so, but I think we're on the right track to show like, okay, we kind of went out guns blazing. I don't think we had a lot of our I's dotted and our T's crossed at all. And I think this is a much more controlled, slower approach, and we're really making sure to cover those bases for safety and liability, and yeah, I love what I'm hearing. So, anything else?
I mean, we just want, like, to be kept in mind, like, yes, we all have the, like, chance of relapse, but we're not the people from a few years ago. We are
Right,
different
like, you don't
people.
wanna be compared to the people what happened last time.
Absolutely.
To now, cause honestly, like, every time I walk in this room and as soon as the class starts, I feel so much empowerment for change, like you said
Right.
last night, like, I feel like everybody in this room, people are heads together, could really change the class out.
I think you're good. I
So-
absolutely agree.
I hate the thought that, and it's probably more than likely going to happen, like Michael said, that like, what has happened a few years ago is definitely gonna have like, a shitty outlook of what we're gonna look at until we get shit rolling.
Yeah.
It's like a
But we just want everyone to,
every
to
situation.
see that we're not the same,
Yeah.
and we are different.
So the
Every
Department of
addict
Corrections
is different.
really, so our training, we're trained extensively. So I know it may feel that we're putting you in a group or a category, but most of the agents in there have 10+ years, so they're not newbies, they've been around the block. We've seen a lot. We've seen miracles, we've seen nightmares. And so I think we use a lot of our tools, our software that we have to assign risk and, you know, need and responsivity. But there's a lot of professional judgments in there, a lot of professional judgment. We have a pretty good indicator of timeframes. So, you know, when people come to us with less than a year of sobriety, we really get nervous. Because we've seen it. We've seen people be recovery coaches that have 3 years of sobriety and they're back in prison. So I mean, time isn't even a great indicator. So it's such an unknown, you know, and it is such a hard decision to make, and so when we get to the point where, well, just like you came and you said, I would like to be a sponsor, or I had a sponsor, we've gotten on board with that, okay, and it's not gonna be the same for everybody. Okay? But I'm always, like, I mean, if you don't agree with the rule, there are processes in the DOC. You start with an administrative review that comes to me, an administrative review that goes to the regional office, an administrative review that goes to the secretary. But the bottom line is, I mean, we respond to them based on, you know, what has happened in the past, and we've gone through the court system, so this, you know, has been upheld by a court system, because we've been sued, we went through the court process, we won. It's there for a reason, okay? You just gotta trust me. Okay? But the Wapaka office for probation and parole, I mean, I've been there forever. If you ever have a question, you can ask me. You know, I've been there. If you can ask me, I'll be there. If you have an idea, if you have something that you think would maybe work better, I mean, we're all ears. I mean, if you wanna, you know, if you think this would be a great resource, please let us know. Okay? And thank you for listening and not completely with me. By being a part of it.
Well, thanks for coming and I appreciate what you did just,
Thank you. No, congratulations to you guys for doing this. This is pretty incredible.
Thank you again. Okay, so we went a little bit over time today, but that's okay, because we